Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Jimmy Dore Show. We have a special guest today. He's running for Congress in Ohio's 1st District. You might recognize him from being on this show before, or if you watched one of the debates on CNN for the Democratic National Committee chair. It's Sam Ronan, our good friend Sam Ronan. Hi, Sam. How are you?
Hey, Jimmy, how's it going? Good to be back.
Good to hear you. Now, you are running for the 1st Congressional District in Ohio, but although you ran for the DNC chair, you're now running as a Republican. So
Absolutely.
you talk about a Dem exit. Holy cow. So
Well,
tell me what led to that decision to run as a Republican?
well, the funny thing is, Jimmy, I had intended to run as a Republican when I first left the military. It was just a few things got in my way, and I ended up running as a Democrat. Now, after having ran as a Democrat and for the DNC chair, you would think, well, that's crazy. Aren't you trying to tank your chances of winning? Well, here's the thing, Jimmy. The Democrats have had 9 months to support me, to support progressives, to change their ways, to learn from their mistakes, to apply the lessons they've learned in 2016 and beyond. They have chosen not to. And I'm not going to continue, tilting at windmills until they get it through their heads. Or maybe that's just what they want. 18 million people have left their party, and they don't seem to care. So I'm going to go to the Republican Party for two reasons. One, it's a gerrymandered district, and it makes more sense to go as a Republican. And for two, people are actually responsive to my message. It was just when I had a D next to my name, they slammed the doors in my face. So I think I can actually reach these people and get them the representation they need.
So that's how I figured what it was. I thought it was something like that. It wasn't that you changed your philosophy. You just changed your philosophy on how to get elected.
Exactly.
And so this will be interesting because I always had a feeling, well, if you poll Americans on issues, they come up progressive, right?
Hmm.
Majority of people want the government to provide health care. The majority of people want to end the wars and invest that money back here. The majority of people want a tax on Wall Street. They want to break up the big banks. The majority of people want free college. The majority of people want all this stuff.
Hmm.
So if you put an R next to your name in a red state, maybe that'll help you. That's what you're doing?
Absolutely. And what I don't understand is why people find that so hard to believe. I mean, okay, I get it. Progressivism is usually in the Democratic Party, and I respect that. And it's also typically in the Green Party, and I respect that as well. Greens don't exist in most states, and the Democrats don't exist in red states. That's just a fact. And in most districts where it is Republican dominated, i.e., rural and less populated areas, it's just straight ticket red. Even if you wanted to run as a Democrat, you couldn't. If you want to make a difference, if you want to make a change, you have to get rid of the people who are preventing it. You have to challenge them in their places of power in whatever way that works. And that's what I'm doing. People want to attack people for going into Dementer, but it's the same thing there. It makes sense to be Dementer in California, Florida, Massachusetts, and all these other very liberal states. But it doesn't make so much sense in Ohio, or at least not my district. So I appreciate that you see that, Jimmy. I hope after this, I guess, snippet of discourse, people get to see the bigger picture too, because it's not about changing who you are or your values just to get elected. It's about sticking by your values, sticking by your platform, showing who you are, but just using whatever label people are happier with.
How's the Republican Party responded to you? You said the Democratic Party didn't help you. Are they going to help you?
Well, interestingly enough, it does seem like there is willingness to help. I'm actually rather surprised.
Me too.
We've done a little. Well, I mean, think about it, right? The last time Republicans had a platform like mine, it was Eisenhower in office, right? So that's been a minute. But like you said, people in general are polling. They want these reforms, lowering the taxes for the middle class, getting rid of the big banks, tuition forgiveness, restructuring the healthcare industry to actually support people.
Are you for
And I think,
Sam, are you for Medicare for all or something like that? What is your
oh
plan on?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
So Medicare for all, absolutely. And one of the things I've been suggesting is Medicare for all is the one that we would want, right? I mean, because we're already paying for it, it's already solvent. I can go into the numbers.
Right.
But getting there might be a few steps process. So I think one of the things I would propose would be a standardization of medical costs, because if you go to the hospital in a big city, it's going to cost a lot more than if you go to an urgent care center in a smaller city,
Right.
right? But the cost of a broken hand shouldn't be any different. If we could just standardize that across the country, we would lower our costs that way. That would be a good first stepping stone.
Okay, so good. So you still seem to have a progressive view. Are you still for progressive income tax? Are you for that?
Yeah, no. So the progressive income tax, yeah, I remember, I think one of the first interviews we had a big argument about blanket taxes. So all I want to do is expand the 15 percentile to the incomes 100,000 and below, because incomes that are at that level are about middle class, whether you're in Los Angeles, New York City, and Boston, or if you're in rural Ohio. If you're making around $100,000 or less, you're a middle class income. So we should be taxed about the same and then pick up the progressive tax rate from there, but eliminate the loopholes. Because I think what people fail to realize with these progressive tax rates, there's plenty of friggin' loopholes. They're trying to be able to write off jets for crying out loud.
Yep.
So if we don't get rid of the loopholes that the wealthiest members of society can enjoy, then it's a moot point. So we have to get rid of the loopholes, enforce the progressive tax rate, and expand the lowest tax bracket for the majority of Americans.
Are you for public financing of elections?
Oh my goodness. If that were the case, if we could do that, we wouldn't need political parties anymore, because it would be everybody gets a fair shake. Everybody. That is my dream come true if we can get back to that.
Yeah, we could get to that. That would be amazing. That's the goal, I think. The public financing of elections. It's, hey, women got the right to vote. We ended slavery. We beat communism. We went to the moon. These things can happen. It's a tall order to get money out of politics, but it's either that or a real revolution, because that's where we're heading. When you take the richest country the world has ever seen and you render half of its population poor or low income, and right now corporations are sitting on record profits. The Wall Street is booming. We're spending records amounts on bombs that we're running out of, and then people don't have enough money to live on. They see what's happening, right? So this isn't going by without going noticed. People know that they are working harder than ever for less, and they have a shittier life than people in Canada and in Europe. They know this, right? So I don't know how much longer people are going to put up with it before they're in the streets, right? So that's what we need, by the way. We need people to get in the streets, get active, and take back control of their government.
And to your point, Jimmy, that's why I think running as a Republican isn't such a crazy idea, because most people, like you said, they poll for the issues. So if it's just a warm fuzzy for them that they voted for a Republican or a Democrat in their respective arena, then that's what we got to do, because you're right. The next step is rising up. Millennials, they cannot actually afford a life. They can't start families. They can barely get careers because their degrees that they were promised that would give them this great job are being rendered moot because everybody has them now. And these employers want ridiculous minimums just to start. And then, like you said, they're funding frivolous wars. We got, the military industrial complex with their hands everywhere. And it's just mind-boggling. So the goal has to be to remove those people who are pushing those policies in office and get them out, however that looks. If you can primary them, great. If you can challenge them as the opposite party, great. But whatever it takes, that's what I'm doing, Jimmy.
Sam,
I'm living my values.
And who is your primary opponent in the? So you could run it against a Republican in the primary. So who is that?
That would be the incumbent, Steve Chabot. And I don't imagine there'd be more contenders. I don't think by me going up against him, they would open the door for others, because we do know one thing. The Republicans do tend to be very loyal to their people. However, if one person's an upstart, it's not going to encourage others to be an upstart, which is why we're going to focus on a ground game, knocking on doors, meeting people, shaking hands, and doing a lot of listening rather than telling.
Listen, that's nice, Sam. Look, you sound like a real politician. That's nice. We're going to do a lot of listening, more listening than telling. All right, a lot of listening tour. I like a listening tour. Good for you, Sam. All right, well, good luck. Hey, listen, how's this being received so far? Do you have any reports on how people are taking your Republican candidacy?
Well, as you can imagine, Jimmy, there's quite a few leftists and supporters of mine that are pretty upset. But there's also quite a few that are very supportive. There's, I think I raised over $300 in that one night, that just in that announcement timeline. So it's definitely being well received. And like I said, there's Republican leaders that are saying, you know what, this guy might actually have something. He might actually know what he's doing. I think we can help him out. So, The bottom line is people get it. Most people, I should say, get it. There's those that don't, and you know what? Hopefully they see it with their own eyes as this progresses.
So a progressive Republican, Trump is going to give us everything, right? He's giving us this is amazing. He's going to give us a progressive Republican, which I'm all for it. I'm all for progressives. People, I don't care where they come. If they're in the Democratic Party, if they're in the Green Party, Democratic Socialist, or the Republican. If you're a progressive and you have the right policies, I'm all for it. So good for you, Sam. Well, what do you think is going to be your biggest hurdle?
Well, right now it's going to be the same thing as everybody else: raising money and getting volunteers, so like the on the ground volunteers. And it's not so much that, going door knocking. I mean, right now it's the holidays and all that, right? So people are not wanting to do that. So what I'm relying on is the phone banking. We got quite a lot of phone numbers that we can call, and that should hopefully get a lot of the fundraising taken care of. And we're reaching out to schools, colleges, getting some internships going so that we can get our volunteer base. And I think come January 1st, we'll be able to hit the ground running. We're just going to keep on building through the holiday season, and then once we're ready to rock, we'll be ready to rock. And again, people like you and, the other news out there and the other supporters just spreading the word, that is going to be very helpful. There's other candidates doing it too. Lindsey Brown's running as a Republican in Congress. Jimmy Connolly had a 40% sweep in his district, although it was an unsuccessful bid in New Jersey. The tide is changing, and I think with the Democratic Party losing fundraising at record numbers, this might very well be a wake-up call. So we'll see. We'll see what happens next, Jimmy. But I think it's good. I think there's going to be a lot of fire and energy moving forward into this 2018 primary.
Do you think Steve Chabot is particularly vulnerable?
Absolutely. So here's the funny thing. If I wanted to run as a Republican against my home district, the 15th, against Steve Stivers, I would lose dismally. The man is a 20-year vet. He is actually popular in the district. He doesn't vote horrifically. I think he's a 50-50 party line guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but he's very big into the veterans. He christened the Veterans Museum. He's really friendly and accessible and approachable. I would have lost to this guy. But Steve Chabot, he spends taxpayer dollars to take lavish vacations in foreign countries. He's funneled $150,000 plus into his son's company. He's just a scumbag, and he votes party lines like this horrible Republican, alt-right, ridiculous fascism. He votes on this. Of course, on his website, you think he's like the next Eisenhower, fighting for values, fighting for small business. But the reality is quite the opposite. And that's why I'm saying it doesn't matter how we replace this guy as a Democrat, as a Republican. We just need him gone. If I can beat him in the primary, it doesn't really matter who wins that race in the general, So that's my goal. At least get him out of the running.
Okay. All right, Sam. Well, good luck to you. And I'm interested to see how this turns out, see how you do as a Republican. This would be fantastic. Maybe all the progressives will start signing up as Republicans and will take over the Republican Party. Wouldn't that be funny? All right. Well, we'll see what. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, it sounds crazy, but I think there's some room for it. They elected Trump. They let that happen.
Yeah. Yes, they did. All right, buddy. Thanks for coming on. We'll talk to you later. Take care, Sam.